The San Francisco Giants have one of the more impressive dynasty runs in all of professional American sports since the turn of the century. Having won the World Series in 2010, 2012, and 2014, the Giants have been one of baseball's most successful franchises over the last 15 years. However, for the first time since their last title a decade ago, the Giants have no more players from their dynasty on the roster today. The Giants have only made the postseason twice in the last decade, and with all the players from the title runs gone, San Francisco's looking to officially start a new era of baseball. And with that, I would like to welcome everybody to the very first episode of the San Francisco Giants franchise here on MLB The Show 24. I'm really excited to roll with the Giants as our franchise team this year because ever since I was a little kid, I've always had a soft spot for the Giants. Brian Wilson, the crazy reliever with the big beard, was one of my favorite players growing up, and ever since then, I've rooted for the Giants from afar. I think their roster's in a really interesting spot, lacking high-end talent in the Major League team and in the farm system, along with being one of the older teams in Major League Baseball to begin with. I'd be lying if I told you that Oracle Park also did not influence my decision as well. Not only is this the most beautiful park in all of baseball, but it's also got to be the most unique. From the right field wall and splash shots into McCovey Cove, to Triples Alley out in right center, to the giant glove and the Coca-Cola bottle in left center, Oracle Park is special. And I'm really excited that this is going to be the park that we have for our home team this year in franchise mode. For those of you who are new to the channel and might not know me and my series very well, this is going to be a realistic franchise. That doesn't mean we're not going to have fun and make big moves, but we're going to do it all in the name of realism. I like to get my subscribers and viewers involved, and this year, you at home can make international free agents in my Discord server. The link is in the description. And eventually, those international free agents will be signed by other teams and maybe even by our San Francisco Giants. And we're going to do international free agency a little bit differently than we have in the past. It's going to be more exciting than I have done it previously. I'm not going to tell you how we're going to do international free agency today, however. You guys are going to have to see that in a future episode. Let's break down this roster and take a look at where the San Francisco Giants are for the 2024 season and beyond. As I mentioned in my intro, the roster's in a peculiar spot because the Giants have primarily built this team through free agency. They haven't really had a good farm system for a little while. They don't have many great prospects or many elite players to begin with. But let's take a look at some guys who very well could be long-term building blocks. We're going to start in the outfield and then work our way inwards. I feel like it's only right that we start with Jung-Hoo Lee, the big free agent signing from the KBO. Lee has spent the last 7 seasons of his career in arguably the second best league in the world, being a career .340 hitter over there, having won an MVP and 5 gold gloves. Lee will likely be our leadoff man and our everyday center fielder. He has good contact ratings, solid plate skills, and plenty of range to play center field. He signed a 6-year contract for $113 million with the Giants this offseason, and while his contract is not correct in the game, we will make sure it is later. The other outfielders here include Mike Yastrzemski. He has been a solid starter for the Giants over the last 5 years and gives you a consistent 3 WAR per season. In the corners, we've got Michael Conforto, who's had one of the more interesting big league careers with the Mets and now, obviously, the Giants. He's an expiring contract at the end of the year and is going to be a solid lefty bat in the lineup. Austin Slater, another expiring contract, is somebody who can play all over the diamond. He really hits lefties well, and his primary role will be as our 4th outfielder behind Lee, Yastrzemski, and Conforto. Along with these guys in the outfield, I feel like we kind of have to lump our DH with them because the designated hitter of this team is one of the guys I'm most excited about, Jorge Soler. One of the most dominant power hitters in all of baseball, Soler absolutely mashes. His Soler power is going to be a lot of fun in Oracle Park. 81 power against righties, 99 power against lefties. Soler had one of the better seasons of his career last year, making his first All-Star team with the Marlins. And this is a guy who's played in a lot of big games throughout his career. Not only was he a part of the 2021 Braves World Series team, but he won the World Series MVP. He's made a lot of big hits and a lot of big moments, and he's going to be a big veteran leader for us. Are there any young outfielders who could possibly take some playing time from these guys? I think there are a few names to watch out for, and that starts with Heliot Ramos, a guy who we know pretty well on this channel. We had Ramos in MLB The Show 21 with the Orioles. We had him in MLB The Show 22 with the Guardians, and I'm happy to get to use him again here in MLB The Show 24. Ramos has been a pretty highly regarded prospect for a while. He's gotten some limited reps in the big leagues over the past couple of years and hasn't really been all that good. Luis Matos is another intriguing guy to watch out for. Matos, at just 22 years old, hits lefties really well. He has a very low strikeout rate, and he also played quite a bit in the big leagues last year where he was pretty solid, hitting around 250. Let's now take a look at the infield. I think this is a really intriguing group with plenty of talented players, and I feel like we've got to open things up with the spring training battle at shortstop. It's a two-way race with the favorite being top prospect Marco Luciano. At only 22 years old, I think Luciano is not far off from being the everyday shortstop of the San Francisco Giants. Offensively, there's a lot to like. Solid contact, good pop, good plate discipline as well. Luciano is the 46th ranked prospect in all of baseball, 2nd ranked prospect in the organization, and the 12th ranked shortstop. I think he'll be able to hold up defensively, although it might not be perfect right away. Luciano played a little bit last year to get some experience, and he'll be competing with Nick Ahmed to determine who the shortstop will be. Alongside whoever plays shortstop, we've got Thairo Estrada at second base on the other side of the middle infield. Estrada is one of the better players on this roster, being a guy who can give you good offense, solid contact hitter, pretty good pop, and he's one of the better defensive players on the roster as well. Over the last 2 years, he's been a pretty consistent player. Hits above 250, OPS in the 700s, 14 homers, WAR above 2, and I think there's more to his ceiling than he's shown. At the hot corner, we've got veteran Matt Chapman, who's been one of the better players in baseball over the better part of the decade with the Athletics and the Blue Jays. Chapman just recently signed a 3-year deal with the Giants. He's a little bit inconsistent as a contact hitter. He's only hit above 240 once in the last 5 years. He has good pop, though, hits lefties really well, strong plate discipline, and is one of the better defensive third basemen in all of baseball, albeit he's coming off the worst defensive season of his career last year in 2023 with the Toronto Blue Jays. As part of Chapman's 3-year, $54 million contract, he has opt-outs after each of the first 2 seasons. That's not in the game, but if he plays well enough, we'll find a way to implement it to add to the realism. At first base, we've got 2 guys who are going to play here a lot with Wilmer Flores and Lamont Wade. I think Wade is going to play first base more often just because he's less versatile defensively. Strong lefty bat. If I were to bet on anybody on this team to be the first guy to hit a ball into McCovey Cove, I think it would be Lamont Wade. He hits righties really well and has strong plate discipline. He can play the corner outfield spots, but is not a very good defender. Along with him, we've also got Wilmer Flores, who doesn't really have a set spot in the field, but he's going to play pretty much every day because he might be the best hitter on the roster. Flores is 32 years old and has been in the big leagues for over a decade. Despite that, I feel like he has consistently improved offensively and is coming off probably the best year of his career. The problem is there isn't a lot to his game other than what he can provide at the plate. He's not a very good defender, he does not have an arm at all, and he's slower than my grandmom getting out of bed. Flores has a career WAR of negative 4.4, despite having a pretty high mark last year, which goes to show that his game outside of what he provides offensively, well, it's pretty bad. But he's a good enough offensive player to where he'll be able to anchor this lineup. He can hit for contact, he can hit for power, and he's got really good plate skills. Overall, I think the infield is pretty talented, and there's a lot of good players here, but I'm most intrigued by the catcher position. I don't know if there's any more position on this roster that interests me more in the long term than catcher. We'll start with Patrick Bailey, who will likely be the regular starter here, and Bailey's got a better chance than anybody to be the long-term catcher. Bailey is only 24 years old. He's a switch hitter, former first-round pick, who showed a lot of promise as a rookie last year. His offensive stats, well, they're not really there. He hits lefties pretty well, but cannot hit a righty to save his life. He had a negative WAR last year, but I don't think that's going to be the case often with him because he is so good defensively. He's a great fielder, he's a great framer, and he's got a phenomenal arm. However, there are going to be some guys behind him challenging for playing time. The Giants added Tom Murphy in the offseason. Good pop. He hits lefties very well, too. That's a pretty common theme with this team. Blake Sabol, I think, is one of the more underrated guys in the organization. He can play just about anywhere on the diamond. And finally, it's somebody who hits righties well. Not to mention, we've got Joey Bart, the former number 2 overall pick. Bart has been a bust so far in his big league career, but maybe we can revive what was once a very promising big league career for the young catcher. Let's now take a look at the pitching. The starting rotation I have a lot of questions about, but there are some pretty good players here, and that's obviously headlined by the ace, Logan Webb, who's the best player, period, on the entire roster. Logan Webb is a workhorse. Not many guys in 2024 can consistently give your team 200-plus innings, and that's the exact type of pitcher you're getting with Logan Webb. He's not a guy who's going to give you 10 Ks per 9. He's not going to throw 100 miles an hour, but he can give you 6 or 7 innings a start and is one of the most consistent pitchers in all of baseball. Webb is locked up for the long haul. 5 years, $90 million. He is going to be the ace of this staff for the foreseeable future, and I'm really excited about having a guy like Webb who is so steady and rock solid. Behind him, we've got some solid veterans. Alex Cobb and Robbie Ray are pretty good, but both of them are going to miss a lot of time. Cobb will likely miss the first 2 to 3 months of the year, while Robbie Ray is recovering from Tommy John, and he may miss the entire season. Best case scenario, he returns in August or September. I am pretty intrigued for Robbie Ray's upside after this season. Keep in mind, he's only a couple years removed from a Cy Young, and he's likely going to be here for a little while as he's currently signed for 3 more years and $69 million. So with Cobb and Ray injured for the time being, the rotation has a lot of question marks other than Logan Webb. We'll start things off with Jordan Hicks, a guy we know pretty well on this channel. He was with our Marlins franchise last year as a long reliever. Hicks has been signed to the Giants not to come out of the bullpen, but to be a starter. Hicks is a guy who throws absolute gas. There aren't many guys in Major League Baseball who throw harder than him. He has a pretty high strikeout rate throughout his career, but he walks a lot of guys, and control's been an issue with him at times. Kyle Harrison, the top prospect in the entire organization, will likely have an inside track to entering the opening day rotation. Harrison is the best left-handed pitching prospect in all of baseball, and I think Giants fans ought to be very excited about his long-term future. At 6'2", 200 pounds, there's a lot to like with Harrison's game, as he doesn't really have that many weaknesses, and he's got a nasty breaking ball. Currently, Harrison is the 16th ranked prospect in all of baseball, first in the organization, and he's the 3rd best starting pitching prospect, only behind Paul Skeens and Hurston Waldrop. This is somebody who's got the upside to be an ace, but he's got some work to do, only being a 70 overall. He started in 7 games for the Giants at the end of last year, and was pretty solid, all things considered, and I think there's a good chance he is in the opening day rotation. Outside of Webb, Hicks, and Harrison, it's anybody's guess who joins them. Spencer Howard, Sean Jelly, Ethan Small, Keaton Wynn, and Mason Black will all be competing for the final 2 spots in the rotation until Alex Cobb and hopefully Robbie Ray come back. Let's now take a look at the bullpen, which I think might be the most strongest unit on the roster head to toe. Pretty solid group of veterans across the board, of course led by the all-star closer Camilo Doval, who we know very well on this channel. We had him in the Guardians franchise in MLB The Show 22. We had him in the Marlins franchise last year, and we get him again. 3rd time's the charm. I'm excited to have Camilo Doval on the team for a 3rd consecutive season. This is one of the better closers in all of baseball. He throws super hard. He's got a nasty breaking ball. He's one of the best strikeout artists in all of baseball. He does not allow the long ball, and he's gotten better with his control and allowing walks. Doval has 4 more years of team control, and I expect him to be one of the best relief pitchers in baseball over that entire span. We can't forget about the Rogers twins. Taylor Rogers is a very solid lefty who's been a proven pitcher for a long time, and his twin Tyler Rogers isn't too bad either. Between the two of them, I think Taylor's a little bit better. He's really good at not allowing hits, whereas Tyler Rogers, I think, is a little bit more well-rounded. He's better at not allowing walks, not allowing homers, and of course, he throws submarine style. Along with them, we've got Luke Jackson, who's pretty solid. Tristan Beck has played pretty well, and he has B potential. And we're going to see competition from guys like Ryan Walker, RJ Dabovich, Amir Garrett, and others. Hopefully, we don't play the Tigers too often to where Garrett doesn't have to meet Javier Baez. So now that we've taken a look at the roster, let's take a look at the future outlook for this team and the farm system, which, hint, hint, isn't very good. We have two really strong prospects in the organization with Harrison and Luciano, both of whom are expected to make the opening day roster. After them, the farm system is not good. I think our highest potential among any prospect after the two of them is only like 84. The farm system is quite bad, but there are some guys I want to highlight. We've got a number of good pitching prospects who I think can be pretty solid, and that starts things off with Hayden Birdsong, the 5th-ranked prospect in the organization. Birdsong was a mid-rounder a couple years ago who has flown up the system. He's got 4 pitches, strikes guys out, and doesn't allow a lot of home runs. Carson Whisenhunt, the lefty, is the 7th-ranked prospect in the organization, but in my personal opinion, I think he's the best prospect on the entire team, other than Harrison and Luciano. I think he's not too far off from being a big leaguer. He's got a 4-pitch repertoire himself, and I think he's going to be really good. Landon Raup and Joe Whitman are 2 other guys to watch out for in terms of pitching prospects as well. In terms of position players, I'm very excited about Bryce Eldridge, the Giants' first-round pick last year. Eldridge was a two-way player in high school, although unfortunately, he will only hit and play first base for us. Eldridge has impressive raw power at his age and I think has a lot of upside. In the outfield, 18-year-old Rainer Arias is the 3rd-ranked prospect in the organization, and he himself has plenty of upside. One of the most recent international free agents for the Giants, Arias has gotten a lot of comparisons to Eloy Jimenez. Hopefully, unlike Eloy, he'll be able to stay on the field. His raw offensive upside makes him exciting, but he's got a lot of work to do. Walker Martin was the Giants' 2nd-round pick last year. I think he could be pretty good. Averson Arteaga and Maui Ahuna could be 2 players to watch out for. Arteaga was a highly regarded international free agent signing, and Ahuna was a 4th-rounder last year out of Tennessee. Grant McCray in the outfield, I think, could be pretty good. I think the biggest sleeper in our farm system, though, is Victor Berricoto. He's the 11th-ranked prospect in the organization, but I think he could be a lot better than that. I think his offense is already pretty far along. He doesn't have great plate skills, but he's got really impressive power, and he hits the ball really hard. He only has C potential, but I think this is somebody who very well could contribute in the big leagues and outperform his prospect ranking. Some other guys to include are Hunter Bishop. He was a former 1st-round pick. Will Bednar as well was a 1st-rounder just a couple of years ago out of Mississippi State. And of course, he's the brother of Pirates all-star closer David Bednar. So that's where we're going to leave off today's episode. Next time around, we're going to briefly go through spring training and talk about some of these roster battles. But what we're really going to focus on next episode is the start of the season. We're going to go through opening day along with a decent portion of April to see how our Giants kick off the 2024 season. That's going to wrap up today's episode. I hope you guys are as excited for this series as I am. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more San Francisco Giants franchise and more MLB The Show content. Peace out.